Repeat after me. Sector approaches to strengthen Copenhagen can bring fast action to climate protection.
And bring fast action to climate protection.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. Our next chair is Fridtjof Ananda. He's Director of Energy and Petroleum at the Research Council in Norway. And as such, he's responsible for the government-funded R&D programs for renewable energy, energy efficiency, CCS and petroleum here. He was previously Deputy Executive Director and Acting Executive Director of Innova SF, a state enterprise that's responsible for energy efficiency and renewable energy programs. Before that, he worked at the IEA in Paris as acting head of the Energy Technology Policy Division and senior energy analyst. He's also been senior scientist for the Institute for Energy Technology here in Norway and visiting scientist at Lawrence Berkeley National Lab in California.
Thank you. We had very interesting discussions in our group, and we soon realized that our topic was very wide and it opened up for many specific issues and interesting and important issues that would have required that we had much more time to elaborate on this. So we were a bit frustrated that we didn't have 2 days and just only 2 or 3 hours to discuss this. So it certainly was a challenge for us to distill out some key messages that we thought were important to communicate to the negotiations. But in the end, we ended up with some messages that we want to present to you. I want to thank the group for providing very important input to the discussions. There were lots of experienced people with different backgrounds around the table. We had a big group. We were about 25 people at least at the outset. So that was very stimulating. And I also want to express a special thanks to our rapporteur, Bjørn Utgaard, who not only helped us prepare this presentation, but as I understand, all of the other presentations as well. So he's certainly multitasking. Oops, there's technical problems here. Yeah. Seems like we're ending up with more than a 2-page communique here. Anyway, we discussed business models quite a bit, also because we had people around the table who had experience with various approaches in various markets. So that was a very stimulating part of our discussions. But we also recognized when we looked at the negotiation text that it's not very focused on entrepreneurial needs. So we wanted to bring this up as a specific general comment that this should be strengthened in the negotiations and in the text coming out, or the agreement coming out, hopefully, of the Copenhagen negotiations. This both to ensure an entrepreneurial edge and active participation by small and medium enterprises, which was brought up as something very important. And we saw that this is crucial in terms of ensure that technologies are appropriately transferred from the development stage and out to the markets. We also had another general comment, and that is that we should also incorporate co-benefits from technology development and technology adoption. Because while accelerated development and deployment of low-emission technology must remain the key focus, given that we are aiming at reducing emissions resulting in climate change, we also put forward the point that it's important to value the co-benefits such as job creation, environmental protection and health impacts. This to give increased incentives for implementation of needed measures, particularly in developing countries. So we wanted to bring up this aspect that bringing this elements of various technologies to the forefront is important, and technologies that may have the same carbon reduction potential may have different co-benefits, so this should be taken into account. We then moved into sort of the hard core of technology development and deployment and discussed various approaches to stimulate both technology push and technology pull. First, when we discussed the the technology push side to ensure incentives to drive the development of important low-carbon technologies. We first recognize something that is said very often, but nevertheless it's still very important to bring up, and that is that national governments need to significantly scale up public funding for R&D with focus on important low-carbon technologies. And this has to happen soon. The technologies we need in the long term to solve the climate challenge will require that we develop new solutions, in addition, of course, to deploying existing technologies. This is not at least important in order to make sure that we reduce cost of technologies that will be important for deployment in the decades to come. But we also discussed the importance of ensuring that we have efficient mechanisms for targeted international cooperation on R&D. Targeted in this case means both in relationship to technology areas, targeted to the most important technology areas, but also that the R&D effort should be focused on targets. And we were also discussing the concept of technology roadmaps in this context. We also want to emphasize, in general, when we talk about cooperation in our group, it's not just north-south cooperation, but also south-south cooperation. So that's an important additional element to the written conclusions here. We discussed IPR, and we recognized that IPR rules in intellectual property rights could often be a hinder, both for collaboration between research groups, university research institutes, and business communities, and thus be a hinder for collaboration between public-financed research and business research. But it also can be a hinder to facilitate knowledge sharing across countries, across businesses. So we wanted to emphasize that rules should be developed so that they do not hinder this collaboration. Then to the technology pull side, the development of markets. We spent quite a bit of time discussing this part. And we also recognize that we're talking here about a myriad of markets and different technologies that would require different instruments in order to establish efficient markets. But we wanted to point out that simplicity here is important. So to develop simple, transparent, and locally adapted regulation and incentives is key to develop efficient markets. We discussed some of these instruments, and one that was brought up was combining buying power, for example, to procurement programs to establish and then mature markets is important, both to achieve scale of this market and to accelerate learning. We talked about the issue of first movers, that establishing markets and putting incentives in place is also important to reduce the risk of first movers, so that we encourage technology learning by doing and not by watching. Access to capital is a key issue, of course, throughout the business development cycle, from the seed and development side and the early markets to when technologies come at a commercial stage. This topic is also relevant to the finance group, so I'll leave that for the next speaker. And we had a discussion about that, especially when we look at the demand side. There are lots of technologies that are ready for deployment. We can achieve a lot by accelerate and deployment of these existing technologies. We particularly discussed this in the context of buildings, where today, currently, almost 40% of global energy-related CO2 emissions are related to energy consumption in buildings. And it's set to increase. The share of buildings in total energy use and CO2 emission is set to increase. And we all know that there exist many